challenge to show Wales' best surfing to the world, this is the guy I choose.
With rail game, a power repertoire and one of the best vertical bashes out there, James Jones would turn heads anywhere, and it's all done with style and speed.
But above all that, what's the first thing anyone says about him? Nicest guy you could ever hope to meet. Welcome to Crest, James. We stand by it all. Stick him out there with the Aussies, the Brazilians, any other nation, and James will blow up. But, crucially, he'll do it making friends all the way. I reckon I'm sat alongside one of the nicest guys in surfing. One of the coolest dudes. Two of them, actually. It's a guest presenter. Ladies and gentlemen, for this ultra special episode, we are making our video debut. If you're watching us on YouTube, then a Crest first. This week, instead of simply seeing the great cover art by GS Design Co. throughout the episode, you should, if producer Dodd, who's just out of sight to the left of the screen, but he will come on screen one day, has read the manual properly, you should be able to see us. And if you can see us, then you'll notice that we found a half-decent solution to Rob's quarantine problem in the form of James Rhino Thomas, star of our second interview episode ever, and of that Tom Curran tale which led us to an Inertia article. Welcome back, Rhino.
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, befitting the life of a man in demand, this is actually Rhino's second Crest recording session as co-host. He and I interviewed the incredible Angus Ruddle a day or two ago, and we had an absolute blast, and that is out next Monday. But we've got to stick to producer Dodd's master chronology plan, so it's complicated, I know, but it means that Rhino's first hosting stint to see daylight is actually being made with him already a veteran in podcast hosting. Anyway, he is here to keep James Jones on the straight and narrow, or actually, should I say, as far away as possible from the straight and narrow, and we're both delighted about that.
That's a good pun for James, really. Going straight is about as far as you can get from what his surfing actually looks like. Although in the 90s in particular, he was famous for having some pretty narrow boards under his talented feet. I first saw James surfing back when he was a grom, and as would happen coming from a family like his, he arrived with a lot of fanfare and a lot of expectation. But from my perspective, being pretty much the first in my bloodline to become a serious surfer, I can only imagine what it must have been like to learn to surf with a whole nation waiting for you to achieve big things. But he wore the pressure with a beautiful smile, and a beautiful smile which never actually left him.
Weight of expectation? What weight of expectation? Around the start of his grommethood, James started winning, and he didn't stop. Apart from when he chose, on his terms, to take a break, during which he surfed every day, only to come back even better. Coaching, mentoring, repping, in fact various roles within the surf industry, including now running the WSF Surf School. James is an all-rounder in every sense of the term. You won't find a better person to chat the technical details of wave riding with, and we will be doing that in due course. And his passion for the surfing which this country produces is infectious.
And I've been fortunate since the last time we were against each other in a jersey to spend time with James quite often through my own work in the surf industry. And I always love coming here. Everybody loves him, and there's a real sense of a top surfer who happily sits right in the middle of a community. And that is something which is very important to you, isn't it, James? Having a place and a role in a surf community, like both on a national and a local level.
Yeah, definitely. It's just nice to be... Well, you've got to be involved with everyone, haven't you? It's, you know, I'm good mates with all the people I surf against, and you've got to be nice to everyone because they've got to come in and give us their money. So.
There is that.
My dad did say to me a long time ago, he said, just remember, the people that are outside the shop when we open in the morning are here to give us their money.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant.
You heard in our intro, you know, references to sort of growing up. And you know, things did sort of happen pretty thick and fast for you, and you were sponsored by Quick at, was it the age of 13?
Yeah, it was about 13, I think it was. It was, I sort of, I'd been competing a little bit and entered a couple of contests. You know, the Mambo Scholastics in Porthcawl, I think every grommet of my age had been in that contest at some point. my dad sort of, never pushed me into competing. It was something I sort of naturally wanted to do. There weren't that many contests even, so they were few and far between. And I did very well sort of the first proper year I competed, and I'm not exactly sure how I got picked up by Quiksilver. It was a little bit of a fluke, I think, at the time. It was just at the start of the early 90s where surfing was starting to boom, and big brands were looking for kids here and everywhere, and probably off the back of my dad's reputation and surfing a lot myself, I had a phone call. So
you mentioned, you said your dad's reputation. How aware were you at the time of sort of starting to compete that that there were people out there going, "Oh, that's PJ's son," and did it matter?
I don't think it did. I didn't feel any pressure from it. I've never felt any pressure of having to follow in footsteps or achieve what he did, or not that I've come anywhere close really, but I don't feel. I know some people, in other sports hate the fact that they're under the shadow of their dad, but no, I think it was a good thing. It opened doors for me.
And do you think some of that is down to the fact that your dad never pushed you?
Yeah,
he was.
When
I was your age, I did it this way.
No, he was never pushy. He could have been a bit pushier, possibly.
Yeah.
But that's obviously later on in life. You think, oh, maybe we should have done this, maybe we should have done that. But he was very competitive himself in his own world, and that obviously rubbed off because we're competitive when we surf.
Yeah.
Even now, it's always a competition.
To the extent to which, I suppose in modern sports science there's much debate about whether such a thing exists, but to the extent to which it does exist, I would say you're a surfer with a high level of natural ability in surfing. And I'm just wondering if you've ever thought about how the world might have been a different place, or your career might have been a different place if you had been like kind of hotboxed in that way. If your dad had decided to be that guy up to his knees in the water in filming all your heats. Yeah,
well, probably fortunately, because we had the shop, he was rarely at contests.
Yeah.
It was only the really, really early ones. In fact, I could probably count on one hand the amount of contests he's ever been at that I've been in.
Really?
It's like,
would you have liked him to be at more?
I would have probably felt more pressure if he had been there. Yeah. But then also he would have probably taken a little bit of the nervous energy away from me.
Yeah.
So again, later on it's a big what if, but probably felt more pressure him not being there.
Really?
And then going there on my own and having to do it myself.
Yeah.
When you've got sort of, say greats, but sporting people have got their own entourages of people that have often done things and are there to coaches or whatever you want to call them, mentors, whatever. I can see that can take and deflect football teams with managers, and they're there to just take all that pressure off. So I might have done a bit better, but it might have been worse having him screaming at me in the water's edge. Like, why did you take that wave? So I'm glad I've done what I've done on my own. And sort of completely on my own. But I think he's probably only even watched me twice ever in a competition.
Wow.
And one of those I would have been 13, and then possibly that is probably it might even only be the once. It's like really few.
Yeah. Amazing.
And that young age, at 13, you get picked up by Quick. You, obviously Quiksilver is renowned to be that sort of, it's a family, and to be allowed into that family is quite a special thing. So obviously there was a few people that, obviously some real surfing royalty that you would have met along the way.
Yeah.
Who was that?
It was brilliant. It was my first, just before it sort of all kicked off and I started going away to events and stuff, my package would turn up and there would be thousands of pounds worth of clothes. Yeah. 2 or 3 times a year I'd have my first box. I remember I had 15 pairs of board shorts, 30 t-shirts. It was just endless, it was endless. And then that winter we went to the Canaries. In fact, this is probably the second concert my dad saw me in, because I was too young to travel on my own.
Oh, yeah.
And Pierre Agnes was the team manager at the time, or head of hardware or whatever. And it was the Quick Pro-Am at San Juan. So that was, there was those guys, and the Harry Hodges and the owners, and yeah, there's a lot of people involved at a time when the sport was absolutely starting to skyrocket, with surfing being like the coolest thing in the world, and because it was pre-internet, those brands were thriving.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So you talk about then going to these trips. Obviously, you're really young. Your dad came with you on some of these trips, obviously, to chaperone you.
Yeah.
But then, obviously, you were with this is before as well, before the quick training camps actually went on.
Yeah.
You were part of the Quiksilver grommet team.
Yeah, well, there wasn't really a grommet team as such. There was a load of us that were all sponsored. There was Gabe Davis, myself. There was obviously Spencer. I sort of fell slightly between age groups of like all the kids teams. So sort of Gabe and myself, we were sort of on the quick team, but we were on our own kind of thing because all the other boys were a little bit older. Yeah, I was thrown in at the deep end. So we went to Lanzarote for the quick pro-am. We turned up at the beach in the morning. Russell was there, Spencer, all the top French boys, Spanish boys. Pierre was there, famous, he's not with us anymore.
Pierre Agnes.
Yeah, and it was like 10 foot San Juan, maybe bigger. Dad was like, oh my God, that is macking in. And Pierre was like, oh, it's okay, James, come with me, like put his arm around me. And I was 13 years old, I was there in my, star trunks.
The Kelly stars.
I'm just like going, oh my God, I'm going to die. So Dad was like, oh, I don't think you should go in, and because it was proper waves. So Pierre was like, oh no, you can paddle out here and sit there. So Dad was like, right, I'm going to put my wetsuit on, I'll sit in the channel. Because I was like, no, I got to go in, I got to go in. It's like, this is the first time Quiksilver have seen me. I can't not go in, So we paddled out, and it was like 10, 12 foot slow motion, just peeling in.
How old were you at this point?
I was 13, yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, right, all I've got to do, I've got to get a wave. I was just thinking, I got to have one. I can't paddle out. It was an open men's contest. There was no junior event. This was quick pro-am, open. That was it. So Russell, and obviously being a bit older, it was their first sort of season doing European qualifiers. And I had 2 waves in my heat, and I was absolutely stoked. I had 2 set waves, and I think I probably just chased for the shoulder of the channel. But I'm sure I did a few half turns. And I survived, and I came in, and I came fourth, and I was like, they were all hooting, and they were chuffed, and I was like, I'm glad that's over. Right, come on, let's go.
And the respect was earned.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. It was probably the biggest stepping stone of my contest sort of career as such, if you want to call it a career. I enjoyed being in there. I didn't enjoy the waves because I was so young. I was shitting myself, but I did want more. It was like I enjoyed that whole thing.
Being out of your comfort zone as well, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the first time I'd ever been. As far as I can remember, growing up surfing with my dad, he'd always, wherever we go, if the waves were big, he'd always just say to me, "Don't worry, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to drown." And that was it. He never was like, "Oh, it's too dangerous" or whatever. Yeah. It would just be, we'd always go in regardless. So.
I think Quick was one of the sort of companies that really rendered somebody like fully sponsored in the way that they would look, and I suppose even down to the towel level, and I have a memory of seeing you in Langland, getting changed after your heat, and not that I was like staring at you as you changed after you, but I remember you pulled out a quick towel, and you were getting changed, and I was like, they've even given him a towel. And then I also remember it was a really intimidating sight, because it was kind of like, that towel, Kelly Slater's got that towel. It's like,
I think I've still got that towel.
Well, that towel's from like the Quick 110, 240 days. It's got that sort of artwork on it from that kind of era of Quick. I think the Q-stick surfboards followed not long after it, and it did mean there was a kind of like an aura. It's like, oh, James Jones in this heat now. Like,
and I part of being part of Quiksilver for me, and even now, is that, and same in all professional sport, amateur sport, whatever, I think, half the time you've beaten them before you've even got in the water. And again, you know, nowadays there's a lot of this going on behind the scenes with competition surfing, but I wanted to look the part as well.
Yeah.
You know, I felt it was really important. You know, I made sure my boards were clean, stickers are on, you know, and I remember, you know, probably feeling exactly the same thing. That first Mambo contest, Russell was in it, and it was the first time I'd ever met Russell, and I was like, oh my God, he looks amazing. You know, he might have only had, he might have had a wooden leg, but you know, he looked amazing.
Like
I was like, oh my God,
and
I can remember even now that mentally he'd beaten me already. I hadn't even got in the water yet. So I think, you know, especially when you're young, that's really important.
And then in the 90s, early 90s, you were sort of getting yourself involved in a real sort of high ability like peer group. Obviously, you mentioned Russell there, Russell Winter. You got the Gabe Davis, Matt Barrow, Ben Baird. But you were in like when the British Nationals back in the day would be sponsored by the Sun newspaper.
Yeah.
And you were in the cadets in that particular year. How did you get on that?
Yeah, that was the first probably big British event, and I don't think we've had one. I don't think we've had one since, really, with that kind of funding and support at an amateur level, certainly. You know, there was the big stand on the beach, there was all the page 3 girls were there.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. I was 15, there was tits everywhere. It was amazing. But, you know, also, and again, I'd gone down to the contest. I wasn't, you know, Dad was, because of the shop, wasn't there, and he always used to say to me, if you want to beat the Cornish boys, you've got to surf tight and really well. Don't give them, the judges, any excuse why you can't, you know, you shouldn't win, or because there was always that Cornish contest in Fistral, Cornish judges, Cornish boys get the nod. So I was like, and I was really focused. The waves were pumping, and it was at Fistral. It was like 4 or 5 foot offshore, sunny, and I remember just finding it quite straightforward. You know, I didn't feel any pressure. I'd entered the under-18s as a bit of a, oh, well, I'm there, I might as well. I won the under-16s and I got all the way to the final for the under-18s, which was brilliant. And then obviously I came up against Russell, Gabe, and I think it was Matt Barrow, possibly. And it was probably my only opportunity to ever have actually won the British juniors in, you know, decent surf that suited me. I still couldn't beat him, bloody Russell Winter. Just too good. It's just too good.
But even though that you didn't beat him then, you like your competitive edge, you did actually go from strength to strength, and you did end up beating some really solid names. And like in one particular Pro Junior, you beat Taj Burrow. Yeah,
that was again all around the same sort of period. I was going to France in the summer with friends and family. Obviously, you know, friends or family. My uncle sleeping here, there and everywhere, camping with the boys, whatever. You know, Quiksilver helped me out a bit. They used to give me a little bit of money to pay for ferries or whatever. And I was in the Quicksilver Pro Junior, and it was a bit of an eye-opener because everyone was there. Danny Wills, Nathan Webster, Taj Burrow, Bo Young, before he started riding longboards. There was all the South Africans. It was like, it was the first sort of few years of Pro Juniors, really. There was only a handful around the world. Mickey Pecan, all of, you know, sort of like, there's probably a load more.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'd have that big billboard advertising it on the
Yeah, it was amazing. And I think the first year it was held was the year prior. And I was like, oh, I'd love to go in it. And then obviously the boys were like, come down, enter the contest. And it was just brilliant. The waves were pumping. It was like 3 to 4 foot. It's the best heat I've ever surfed, ever. I didn't do one manoeuvre. I just had this brilliant memory of having had like 3 complete barrels all the way through, on my 4th coming out and having to claim, and I was devastated because I claimed. I was like, I'm too cool to claim, I'm not claiming. But on the 4th when I came out, and I was just like, oh, I put my hands up, and I just remember walking up the beach beaming because I was like, oh my God, that is incredible. Regardless of the contests, they were probably the best 4 waves I've ever had in my life, and were probably up there in the top few now, you know. And I just remember the commentator going, oh, in 4th place, there was some guy, In third place from Spain, so-and-so. In second place from Australia, Taj Burrow, and all the boys, all the boys bouncing in the stand. You know, the quick team and everyone, and they went. And in first place from Wales, and I was just like, yes. And then the following day it was 1 foot, and I got beaten by Nathan Webster.
But that must have been an incredible feeling.
It was brilliant, yeah, because it was just. That whole summer was just fantastic because we were hanging out down in Hossiger and, you know, went to the Quick Factory and they just load you up with whatever you wanted and paddle off down to some bank somewhere and you'd see one of the boys that worked in the factory, or, you know, they were, because you had the stickers on your board everywhere you went.
Team stickers, were they?
Team stickers, yeah. So it was just
a special one that wasn't.
Nobody else would have.
No, it was just it was really cool, and you know that the end of that summer, I was fortunate enough to surf Mandaka then as well, pumping. It was it was good few years that was before I had to sort of knuckle down and work.
But apparently there's a photo somewhere by a famous photographer called Thierry Organoff.
Yeah, I told my dad and probably every human that I met about the waves that I'd had in this heat, and everyone was like, yeah, right, whatever, James. And then a couple of months later, we had a brochure from Quiksilver that came through, and it was actually like a programme about the contest and other stuff in France. It was a weird, like a newsletter thing. And there was a big full page, and I was flicking through, and I was like, oh my God, it's me, and that's it. So I got the actual, you know, the photo.
Immortalised
forever.
Yeah,
I was stoked.
And you're right, they were the sort of developing years of the concept of Pro Junior, you know, and I think it was they were really prestigious contests, weren't they? And I think that Caberton Pro Junior was pretty much like the worldwide prototype for Pro Juniors, wasn't it?
Yeah, they'd flown in from everywhere.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the Quick Pro Junior. Yeah. There's a guy from Spain, 2 from Portugal, and 12 from France, and me and Mark Richards, possibly, one of the boys from UK. He's a bit younger than me, but all of a sudden, it was like everyone went to that contest.
And they sort of got the idea then, that one was kind of tied to the Hossiger CT, or I suppose the Hossiger CT was a bit after it, and it was always a Rip Curl one. Then there was the Buret CT, which was a Quiksilver one just after that. But then the first one to actually fully get tied to a CT was the Lacanau one there, the Lacanau Pro Junior.
Yeah, that was the following year.
And if you entered the Lacanau Pro Junior, you know, you had a band, and you know, you could go and sit in the contest area where all the pros would be, and that. Yeah. And I remember seeing you there myself, because Chris Sage and I had gone to do that contest the 1 year when you and Sam Lamoureux both went deep into the contest, and you know, Taj Burrow was in that one, and Kieran Perrow and a few others, and you went real deep into that one, didn't you?
Yeah,
and it was
really
giant surf and really hard work, massive paddle out.
It was pumping. Thank God for Llangennith training, isn't it? It was, I'd actually, that summer, I'd gone down with Neil Perot, who made, you know, South African.
Oh, and Kevin, because Kevin Perrow got seeded to the next round by accident because they thought he was Kieran Perrow. I remember it well. And we were all like, no, he's Kevin Perrow.
Yeah, and he's from Durban, not Australia.
That was it, yeah.
And, again, the waves were pumping. All the boys were surfing on the reform on the inside, and I was like, I'm not surfing the reform. I'm going out the back.
Yeah.
And it was like 8 to 10 foot stormy, wasn't it? It was ugly, and I just went out the back and just took off on whatever I could catch, pretty much. And again, I sort of bottom turn, did a turn and kick out because I didn't want to get caught in the inside, and my scores were huge, and I was like, this is easy. I've only got to take off, do a turn, kick out. So like 7, or you know, because I was on the set waves out the back. And I actually remember going. I went for a floater on one, and I got smashed. But I was like, the whole world's watching, and the only one out there. I can elevate myself, you know. So, and I got through like round after round after round, and I got all the way to the final. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in the final. I can't even remember who I was against. They've actually got the draw sheet somewhere with all the names on it, and
as have I, and I can tell you.
God! And,
the contest was won by, do you remember who won it?
No.
It was won by Françoise here.
Yeah.
I remember this, seeing it, the surf dropped to like 2 to 3 foot little peaks, and Françoise here's prize for winning the contest was a wild card.
Oh, was that?
He had to surf against one Robert Kelly Slater.
Oh, no way!
In the Lacanau Pro. Because I was living down there in the Mooncheek with my French mate Julian,
no way.
and you guys left and you went home, and I was left, just me and the French comms once again, because I'd been with these French kids for months, and I was like, oh, the Welsh boys are here at last, don't have to speak French anymore, yes. And then you were gone, and I was just sitting on the beach watching, thinking like, this guy was in the same event as us like yesterday. And now he was comboed. And this was, I think...
I'd love to have been comboed.
I think it was still 3 wave scores as well. So I think he was comboed as in like his 3 waves were going to like beat Slater's 1.
Yeah. But all I remember was getting out in the final and it was pumping again, and I'd had a couple of waves, and I needed a ridiculously small score, like a 0.5 or a 1 to win. And you know what it's like when the swell's massive and there's lots of water move, and I was literally lost at sea, and I was paddling and paddling. I couldn't get a wave, and I didn't, and I came third, and literally all I had to do was take off and catch a wave in, and I would have won the whole thing. It was the first time I ever won money. There was prize money, and I just remember being up on the big with all the hoardings, you know, the pro event and everyone. And Guts and all the boys shouting who ate all the pies.
Yeah, because Guts was there because there was a longboard pro as well, wasn't he? Yeah.
And you know, I can't even remember that there was a place to go on to the wild card, but that's a bummer, that is.
Lamorai says all the same things.
That's a bummer.
And you also then, you know, through some of the later Quick days, got to see some of that Quick Young Guns crew when they were arriving on the scene as well, didn't you?
Yeah, Jeremy Flores, when he was probably 10, 11 years old, was better than everybody I'd ever seen, you know, in France. He was surfing VVF and just absolutely incredible, and a whole host of other, you know, little kids with him as well. You know, I see, you know, Mickey Picon, they were all the kids around our age that were all there. Everyone was sponsored by Quiksilver. Yeah. They were a big family in that sense, you know, and the standard was just incredible. It was incredible.
Listeners to the earlier episodes of Crest will of course remember that we've made a good case for the fact that Jeremy Flores' Pipe Masters win is only down to the fact that he learned how to win in clutch situations against Harry Cromwell, because Harry was part of that as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, a little bit younger Harry was, but I think it was Jeremy watching my heat against Taj, to be honest.
And then 21, and you've done all these things, and then as far as the contest jersey goes, you hung it up.
Yeah, I did a load of contests, and making the step from junior to open is quite, well, in our days was a big thing. Yeah. You know, I used to, it was really hard, and I'd surfed, you know, not in the odd British here and there, and I started to lose the love for it a little bit. Yeah. I was just like, I just sit in the car all day, go in for 20 minutes, it's tide's wrong, the waves are shit. It was good if I'd been in heat number 1, not heat 7 or whatever. And I was just like, do you know, like, you know, you can chase like a dream. It was never a dream. I was just doing it because I enjoyed doing it, you know. Yeah. And
you're still surfing?
Yeah, I'm still surfing all the time. It wasn't like I'd stopped, and I was just like, do you know, I'm going to work and bought a house, and I don't want to do this for 10 or 15 years and actually be back to square one. You know, so I was working in the shop and surfing all the time, you know. God, you know, Dad phones me even now. It's James pumping. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, Dad, he's 70 years old, man. Have a chill. It's.
I remember rooming with you in Mimizan. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was a good contest.
Europeans and junior Europeans. And, and I remember you saying to me in on that trip that you were going out. You had a girlfriend who was older than you. Yeah. She was like 10 years old. Yeah, she was
7 years older than me.
7 years, is it? Yeah. And I remember you were really matter of fact. You just kind of said like, I think because I think this was October or September, October, and you were kind of like, you did pretty much state it as an intention. You were like, she's older than me. I like it. I like life this way.
Yeah.
I'm settling down. I'm going to grow up now. You said.
Yeah,
it was a house.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I don't regret anything. Obviously, we're not together anymore, and I'm much happier now than I was.
But, you did grow up fast then, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't know. It was just... I think I had opportunity. Things started to change then as well, industry-wise, teams. I was a little bit older for all the quick junior, like the Stokesies and all that lot, and Mark Richards and all that lot. They were fully into that whole... team.
That's Newquay's Mark Richards now, Newcastle, Australia.
Yeah, they were fully into that team. They started doing the camps in the Canaries, so I was a little bit older. So I was out of the junior thing anyway. And I was just like, don't need it, Like, I still went in, I'd enter the Welsh. The Europeans was my, like, I want to be in the Europeans, I want to go away with the boys, and that was it. Like, my first trip away as a team was to the British Nationals up in Scotland with this man.
93?
Was it 92?
The year did Peter beat Russell Winter and...
No, Vaughan, no, not Europeans, British Nationals.
Oh, the British,
right. And we went up as a Welsh team.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was like Simon Tucker, there was you, Paul Lovell, Linda, Chris Chip. Remember him dancing as a woman?
Yes.
Throwing a brick through your window to wake you up to go for a surf or something, wasn't it?
Singing Donald, where's your trousers?
It was like the most brilliant trip, and I was like...
and Eugene as well, was Eugene?
Oh, Eugene, yeah, he'd gone up, he busked at me with his trumpet.
That's
and,
right.
Yeah. And it was just like, I want more of this. So, I always wanted to enter the Welsh, to get into the Welsh team, to go to the Europeans. That was kind of... For a long time, that was it. And I think I did a couple of Euros till about 21, 22. Ireland, Bundoran, we went to Bundoran, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then it was pretty much, after that, and I was like, I've got a tits full of just entering anything,
So then obviously the time had gone on, and it was the thoughts of returning to, maybe in inverted commas, getting a responsible job. And you ended up getting a job on the road. Yeah,
just out the blue. We were in the, I wanted a reps job, because obviously having the shop, all these reps were coming in nice cars and expense accounts and everything in the good old days where it was busy. Couldn't get any, I found all the people that we knew, all the distributors and companies, couldn't get a job with anyone. And then out the blue I had a phone call from Animal saying, do you want a job? And I was like, well, yeah. It's like, of course I do. So there was a meeting apparently down in the head office down in Wareham in Dorset, where Ian Parker, the boss, said, we want to employ a junior rep. Does anybody know anyone? And Timo Mullen, the professional windsurfer, and Rob Jones, who's done the rounds in the industry, they were both at either ends of the table, and they both said my name at the same time. And Ian Parker was just like, give him a ring and offer him a job. So I didn't even have to have an interview. It was literally... that was it. So I think 2 or 3 weeks later, I went down there, they handed me keys to a car, mobile phone and a list of accounts and some samples, and went, off you go, and that was that.
Where was your area? Was it the whole of the UK? Or?
I basically had all the dormant accounts. So I did Wales, the Midlands, the Scilly Isles. So I used to drive to Newquay for a week and fly out, it was stupid, Lake District up to Northumberland. But it was just old mountain bike accounts, some surf shops, outdoor shops, and it was literally just to have a face of someone going around, walking in, rather than picking up a phone and speaking to people, just the personal touch. So I did that for a couple of years then. It was good. And then I went on to become an agent then after that.
And who was that with? Who were you agent for?
Well, I was doing a lot of, hotel shows and stuff as you do, repping and setting up in a room, and then all the customers coming to see you. And I was doing it with Jeremy Edwards and Barry Dunning, who were, funny enough, the guys who brought Quiksilver to the UK back in the late 70s, I think, or early 80s. And They did simple shoes, dragon glasses, Ugg boots, Tiva sandals, and they said, "Oh, why don't you be an agent for us?" So I quit Animal and went and worked for them. And that's how I sort of started off then, and picked up then working for Steve Daniels then pretty much straight away with XL wetsuits. So the Quiksilver sponsorship carried on for a good, probably till I was about 24, 25, to a point where I was, selling XL wetsuits. When people go, "Well, what do you wear then?" I go, "Oh, well, I wear a Quiksilver wetsuit because I'm sponsored." So Steve didn't mind and the boys at Quick didn't mind, so it worked really well for a long time.
It's quite a dispensation they made there, though, isn't it?
Yeah, so then it was just like, look, I've got to do the right thing, yeah. So
you're obviously part of the Quiksilver family then
for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was always a little bit, not miffed, but I was always a bit like, because when I phoned them to say, look, I'm working for Steve Daniels, they knew that anyway. I said, but I've really got to be seen to be wearing XL wetsuits, or at least, stuff I'm selling. And they were like, "Oh, well, I don't see why we can't continue sponsoring you with clothing."
Right.
So I was like, "Oh, fucking epic." Because, bro. So, and it was at the time where Greg had just started being sponsored by Quiksilver. So he had a clothing only deal. So I was like, "Oh, cool." But it never materialised into anything for me, which I was always a little bit bitter about. Because I'm way better than Greg.
And me.
I can't make that claim. We've got, Greg will be having a chance.
I was going to say, you're sure he's got a right to reply.
He's got a right to reply.
So you're getting older then, James, and you're becoming bored of just being a really good free surfer. Does that sort of competition sort of thing never leave you? You wanted to start winning again?
Yeah, a little bit. I competitive nature, we all are. We all paddle out for free surf. We want to be the best in the water. I still do it now, even with Patrick and whoever, and obviously I'm not anymore. But it's still, I can still compete with them, and it's like, I had this drive then, all of a sudden, I was like, I'm surfing really well. I'm fitter than I was, and right, now is the chance to sort of make my comeback, and I did. I think it was 2006 then I entered the Welsh. I can't remember.
Yeah. Possibly
the year before. I can't remember the dates very well. And I just had total self-belief. And, you talk, people say about being in the zone, and I just felt that, I've got this. If I enter it, everyone's got to beat me. I haven't got to try and beat them. And it just went like that for the whole weekend. I surfed loads, and probably the time of year helped as well, because it was cancelled in the spring because it was dead flat. And they held it in the end of September or October. And of course the water's warm, summer suits, no boots. I was in a short arm, long leg suit, so you're not as tired paddling, and it just went really well, and got the monkey off my back, because up until that time everyone said, you and Vaughan are the best two surfers never to have won the Welsh, and listening to Harry's podcast, there's oh, poor Harry, he'll win it one day. And I remember just turning to Vaughan and saying, "You are now officially the best surfer, all on your own, never to have won the Welsh." And he was like, "Oh, I know you beat me 3 times today, that's never going to happen again."
Well, that was the year that you won the seniors as well as the Open.
Yeah, senior, I did the double.
That was it then. Yeah, I think Thomas fact-checked this.
It's the first time anyone's ever won it, I think.
Yeah, nobody's ever done it since.
Yeah, and I remember Vaughan telling me that because he knew.
Yeah.
But, and there was a few, again, because of it sort of fell into place not by any normal formula. It's just that because the whole weekend was squeezed into 2 days, they'd changed the final to the seniors to the Sunday morning. So it was quite funny, actually, poor old Greg. And we get to the beach, and I'm always there. I'm never late for anything. I'm always on time or early. I won't be late for anything. And check-in was 8 o'clock, and I'd be there early. So I was there. I slept in the car or whatever. I was there at 7. Up waiting just in case, because things are subject to change. So we all check in at 8 o'clock, and they turn around and go, right, well, we'll run the senior final first, and it was high tide, and get that out the way. And there was like the left off the rocks. I was like, oh, brilliant. Where's Greg? So, well, then they were literally like, well, we can't just wait for everyone to, check-in was at 8 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. And Greg missed the senior final because he was watching cartoons in the B&B, expecting that he wasn't in till the end of the day. But they told us the day before, subjects changed, so...
Round -1.
Right.
But
I'll leave that
still,
to explain at some point.
For me, though, to get that final out of the way, and I went in and I nailed it, and they didn't give the results to the end of the day, but I knew I'd nailed it because I was in that frame of mind all weekend. I only had the Open to worry about or focus on, so I'm not thinking, I've got the senior final, then the Open final. So, Vaughan did it harder because the following year he did those finals back to back. So, I had a bit of a sort of meal ticket really because they were separated and I meant I could come out the final. I had a couple of hours off before then going into the semis and the Open of the, for the rest of the day. So I did get a bit of a break and, but still.
But even so, there's still a lot of surfing to be done in that final day.
My fact checking also has you as in shortboarding because I didn't have enough time to go through all the longboarding, but I can think of duos where it might have happened in longboarding. The only father and son combo to both win the Open at the Welsh. I'm not. Yeah, definitely the Welsh. Yeah. There's not many father and sons that have won possibly British titles or any national title. Oh gosh, you sent me back to my to my records there. Because so it was amazing to have won my dad's won it, now I've won it. Excellent. And you've both got the same number of wins in the Welsh. Yeah. Dad's got 8. Yeah. You've got 8, but yours are across a couple. I'll win a few more though, I reckon. Yeah, that's true. Because yours are across a couple of different divisions, aren't his are all open. His are all open. Yeah, mine. I'm unfortunately. Can you remember where they come from? What categories? Under 14. Right. Under 16. Yeah. I never won the juniors because I broke my collarbone. Right. The week before the Welsh. Right. Do you know who won that year? I think it was maybe Simon Tuckett or someone like that from Langland. All right. Okay. There's a real there's someone like that it was, and it would have been 95, wouldn't it? Your last year of juniors. No, is it? Because your last ever junior final was my first ever junior final. Really? We were in the water together. Yeah, you said it to us, the whole blue. Yeah. We've surfed together a lot though. Toxic Trophy, and you won it. Oh, it was your last. It was your last junior heat, and you paddled up to it at the start of the final, and you were like, "This is my last ever junior final, my last ever junior contest," and I was like, "Oh, it's my first." And I was lucky when I was young though, as in competing. I'd won, I won the Welsh, I won the British, all the British schools, Welsh schools. There was a period where they were all the events, and I think one year I'd won. I had all of them. I had the under 16s, the under 18s in the Welsh schools, British schools. In fact, I was in Resby. Yeah, I remember. And good surf. British nationals and the Welsh nationals. I held all of the. For every single event in my age category, I'd won them all. So to finish out those age categories, then, so we've got under 14s, under 16s open, and then we got seniors have won and masters. So if I hadn't missed the juniors, I would have won every division apart from the longboard and the ladies. And then there was over 40. Nowadays, that can be done, can't it? Is the highlight of your surfing career? I know you talked about beating Taj. Is it your is it event wins or is it performing well? Because another standout heat that you've surfed was in the World Masters in the Azores in 2018, and you got Europeans. Was it the Europeans? Europeans, right. Oh, in the Azores, right. Okay. Yeah, it was in the Azores, yeah. Of course, the World Masters was a year or two later in the Azores, wasn't it? And you got, you were against Joan Duru. Joan Duru, yeah, and all the top French team. I refer to it a lot because when I speak to people like Patrick or whoever about coaching and contests, and it's the one thing that, surfing is simple. It's like when I beat Taj, I didn't do a manoeuvre, I went straight. And I had a heat in the Azores. It was at the end of the day, everyone was at the beach, the whole French boys were there.
Flores' dad was there. You know, everyone was sort of watching, and it was the final heat. There's a Spanish. I was against a Spanish guy. I can't even remember what.
So this isn't 2018 then, is it? It's a bit
no, this is
because the World Masters was 2018 in the Azores.
2016.
Yeah,
it would have been about
right for the Azores. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I had a couple of waves, and I was feeling really good. And a set came in. I took off bottom turn. I did 3 turns, and I was like, that was a quality wave. And I'm paddling back out, going, it's about a 6, you know. And over the Tanna, it said, surfer in red, 8.83. And I was like, fucking hell, I can win this. As in event, not even heat, you know. Because I was like, again, I've surfed simple, it's clean and tight, that's all you got to do. And I won the heat, and Karen Walton came over at the end with a printout of, like, best, highest scores, and there's Joan Deroux's name's below mine. That's my claim to fame. But and it was, you know, I refer to that because it was a really good heat I surfed, but not for being like flary and amazing, just for surfing. Solid surfing, and it's, you know, that's so misled in like coaching and other stuff nowadays, you know. So.
Absolutely right. That's right back to what we said in our against the base sound bed earlier. You know, the vertical off the top.
Yeah, my dad.
And the Christmas tree.
Yeah, the only coaching I ever had from my old man was logos out, logos in.
Oh, right. What's he mean by that then?
And he would just say, you know, come off the bottom, make sure if you do a proper bottom turn, you can go up the wave. So.
And what's that got to do with logos?
Because I'm sponsored.
Oh, so the logo is made visible on your board as you turn?
Yeah, logos out, logos in. So you wanted to see my logos on my board going vertically up and vertically down.
Right.
Logos
so he'd always say logos out, logos in. That was all he'd say to me.
That's
and he'd give me a teaspoonful of honey as well. But it was... But,
I love it.
So that was it. And I say that to the guys now. It's like... No one does prop and bottom turns anymore. They just fly down the line and try and do they don't try, some of them do them very, very well. But there's a lot to be said for those basics, and, you know, that's what wins.
And then your competitive edge obviously was still with you forever, but you changed tack just a little bit and sort of dipped into the fitness, the Ironman side of things.
Well, I'd always trained. I say I always trained. That is a complete lie. I've never really trained ever in my life. I'd much rather have a beer. But I used to swim a lot. You know, my dad was a good swimmer, and from when I was 17, I was swimming every morning in the pool in Swansea, and just you can't keep surfing fit by just surfing in this country because of the waves, the weather, and everything else. So. My dad had a serious accident then, and I'd done some triathlons in the past, and I was always like, I want to do an Ironman, and I was like, I'll never do it. And because he had a serious accident, and the air ambulance came to our rescue, I was like, I'm going to do it for charity. So that was the driving force behind it. And then I did the Ironman in 2012. So, and that was, during the training, I surfed in the Welsh, and I remember just surfing all day, feeling like refreshed, even when I come out at the end of the day, because it was nowhere near the amount of training I'd been going through. You know.
How long does that training regime go on for before an Ironman?
I trained for the training, so I was in the gym on running machines, just doing cardio, just to get a bit of weight down before I started a proper training plan. And then that was dedicated. I had a coach, which structured the training plan so I could peak for it. Wow. And I was doing probably about 24 hours a week of training for that. Maybe more, you know, like long bike rides, swimming in the sea, like for miles, going out for 4 or 5 hours on my bike, coming home, running to Swansea and back, and here, there and everywhere. And as I got fitter, I loved the fitness side of it, and I did become super fit, really. I lost, a bit of weight, a lot of weight, and I enjoyed it, but maintaining that is hard graft, like doing it for a purpose was great. And then I did the Ironman in Tenby, and I did a really good time. I did 11 hours 54. I finished in the daylight. So it's a 2.5 mile swim, which I did in 54 minutes. I did 112 miles on the bike, which took me about 6.5 hours. And then I did a 4-hour marathon after doing all of the stuff prior on like a 50% of the marathon is uphill in Tenby as well. So it's yeah, and I literally finished and was like, oh, sorry, it is.
Did you get the Iron Man tattoo at the end?
Yeah, I've got it on my leg. Yeah, I just was like, I was like, I've done this. Everything on the day went really well for me. And I ended it the following year, and then like halfway through the winter I pulled out because I was just like, I'm not going to have that same experience.
Yeah.
I've ticked every box. I couldn't have done it any better. Forget about it, move on.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I did basically, you know.
Then, okay, so they moved on from there then. So you're back in the shop and you're dividing your time now between working there and working with the Welsh Surfing Federation and the surf school.
Yeah, I started doing that in 2016, I think it was. Well, what, 2020 we are now. Yeah. Yeah, so this is my fourth year, so the summer of 2016. And, you know, I'm massively passionate about the WSF. Probably not the right thing to say as in passion, but we've all, you know, all three of us sitting here now, we've all benefited from what the WSF have given all the Welsh surfers, you know, like my dad, Tucker, Brad. There's endless amount of people you could, you know, Carwyn, Nathan Phillips, there's all sorts, you, Greg, you know, Vaughney, there's everyone, Frenchie, you name it. To the kids now today, they don't even realise what is being put in place for them all.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no funding in surfing, there's no money in surfing as such. All right, there probably is here, there and everywhere, but as a general synopsis of surfing as a sport, there's no money in it unless you are the elite of the elite, you know, and that it's the same all around the world. So the surf school, you know, that supports Welsh surfing because the profits from it go back into the sport is something that I feel passionate about, and I want it to be run for the right reasons. So I sort of got on board just to make sure everything is driven in the right direction from what I can control, you know, and having a shop, we've never had a surf school. We have always completely supported the WSF surf school as our own business, and anyone that comes in, we say, oh yeah, go and book in with WSF, you know, Mike Steadman ran it previously, and it's that's really important. So now I'm running it. I know that it's being run for the right reasons. You know, so money does go back in. It's important to have the Welsh Nationals every year. You know, there is no money apart from people joining their local surf clubs and affiliating to the WSF. And that's, you know, it's important. And it's like a lot of the kids now, they're all work for different surf schools, and, you know, which is great. But everyone should, you know, push the WSF surf school, because the profits from that will make your trip to the Europeans cheaper.
Yes.
It'll make, you know, the Welsh better. If there's more money there, we can put on, I say we, us as a federation of all of us, you know, is like coaching can improve, and it's really important. And that's why, you know, I sort of gave in to the pressures from Herbie to
well done, absolutely well done.
To help drive it, you know, because it does matter. And
Let's talk travel. We love talking travel on Crest. Memorable trips for you then?
Memorable trips.
I got a few ones I can think of. I've seen some images of you surfing in the Mentawis.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I've never, in all the years I've surfed everywhere around the world, I've never been to Indo, so
yeah.
Not even Bali. I still haven't been to Bali as such, but so a couple of years ago, after getting divorced, my girlfriend and, you know, my partner Lindsay now, I was like, oh, I want to go to Mentawis. She's like, go, you know, it's fine. We just had a baby, and I was like, I can't go. It's impossible. She's like, don't be stupid, you go in. So I went with the boys, and it was just incredible. It is everything and more from what I had expectations of watching, like you know, Sons of Fun and Bunyip Dreaming or all those, like, I can't even think of the videos, Sick Joy, Macaronis, my God.
Yeah.
When we got on the boat and the boys, and this is how bad I am with surfing breaks and information, is that we get on the boat and Guy, who's the photographer and guide, he's like, oh, we booked a mooring at Macaronis. I was like, oh, cool. Didn't even know where Macaronis was. Didn't even realise it was actually where all those films were.
Right.
And when we're chugging down there, of course I'd sort of seen it, but not really taken it in as such.
Yeah.
And then I was like, fucking hell, it's Macaronis, oh my God, you know, it's like Andy Irons and all, just everyone. It's incredible.
And where else in the world have you come across great surf?
Canaries, been fantastic with my dad. You know, when I was a kid, we met Jeff Hackman at Lobos. He was staying on a boat with my grandfather.
Off Fuerteventura.
Yeah, that was incredible. Mandaka have scored incredibly well.
Much joy in Morocco? You were talking about...
a couple of years ago I went to Morocco with the XL boys, funny enough, and Steve Daniels took me on a trip, and we had Anchor Point just all time. Amazing.
Great for your backhand.
Yeah, loved it. I felt like Bobby Martinez at Rincon. It was amazing. I probably didn't know it.
And you've been to Hawaii?
Yeah, I went to Hawaii a long time ago when I was 24 and had amazing experience there. Not with the normal Hawaiian stories that you hear of, you know, North Shore. I went midsummer.
So you're surfing south side or west
side?
Yeah,
all the South Shore. So Ala Moana Bowls, number twos, Kaiser Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And
you told a great story from Kaiser Bowl about bumping into some fella.
Yeah, some heavy. It was like the pecking order. There's no pecking order like Hawaii and pecking order.
Right.
You know, it's like I paddled out. So I'd had a board made for me by Glenn Pang in Town and Country.
Right, yeah.
So I picked it up. We arrived on the Friday night and I couldn't pick up the board. They were closed until the Monday morning. So I hired a longboard and surfed and went and picked this board up. And I was like, I was all excited, you know.
You're going to get accepted in the lineup with one
pasty white skin, you know. It's like, I had a bit of a tan because it was midsummer, but I was, you know, not like a Hawaiian tan. Gleaming white boards, fresh, you know, Quicksilver boardies on and everything. And I paddled out at Kaiser Bowl and there's a pack on, you know, sitting out there, and I was like, oh fuck, this looks a bit heavy. And I sat up on my board and I realised that none of the boys had leashes on, so I paddled in, took my leash off, paddled back out, because I was like, I want to fit into the scene, you know, I want to know what I'm doing. Yeah. So a few sets start rolling in. I noticed then, I recognised a couple of old guys. Buttons was in there, and a few other heavies that were very familiar from dad's stories and pictures, you know, growing up. And I couldn't get a wave, and I surfed it 3 times, and I didn't get a wave for the whole day. So I went in the morning, lunchtime, in the evening, couldn't get a wave. Went in the following day, I was getting the odd wave, but not the waves that I wanted. Ones, you know, I was getting, they weren't even the drags; they were like the shit waves. And I think it was the 3rd day, I was like, I'm going to get a wave. I'm going to go in and I'm going to call someone off, or I'm going to get punched, whatever. I got to get one wave. So I literally paddled out. I was like sitting, waiting. A set came in, and I took off, the bottom turned, and it's just a big barrel, so you didn't have to do anything, just literally pulled in. And as I came out, there was a big Hawaiian padding up the face, and I bottom turned, and I like did a really good full rail turn, like covered him in spray, and he hooted, and I kicked out. I was like, fuck man, I've been here for 3 days, that's the first time I've gone right. He's like, oh hey brah, you know, and he said, have you been here, where you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Wales. Oh wow. And he was like a bit chatty, so I was like icebreaker. I was like, wicked. Yeah. So we paddled back out, and he's like, oh, have you been here before? And I was like, and I recognised Buttons and couple of the other guys, and they were in all the time. And I was like, no, I said, but my dad was here in 76, he was in the Smirnoff, because I knew Buttons had been in it, and these guys were all of a similar ilk, you know. And he's like, he went, fuck bro, I was in that contest. So, and he's like, he said, oh, what's your name? So I said, James Jones. Of course, there's a fine thing, you know why he's James Jones. Yeah. So he's like, oh cool, and like shakes my hand and introduced me to everyone. So at the time, I was there on my honeymoon, so he's like, what are you doing? Yeah, so I'm on my honeymoon, and, you know, I've always wanted to come to Hawaii, but I'm too scared to come in the winter. And literally surfed it then every single day, and because they all take off and go right, and they literally just take off and pull in. The left off Kaisers is incredible. I just sat inside them every set wave and went left. So I had more waves probably in Hawaii than I've had on any surf trip anywhere in the world. And then every now and again I'd call them off a right. And they, you know, and they'd be a bit grunty, and I was like, oh, I'm going home tomorrow, or like, you know, in a week. And they were cool. They were like totally cool. But I'd only always pick one right. That I'd, you know, go on. Yeah. You know, I just went left and kept out the way. And he was like, oh, I commented that I didn't have a leash on. And so, yeah, that was a good trip.
That is an incredible story.
That was a good trip. And then I paddled out one morning in the dark, because it was always heaving. And it was pumping. And he's like, oh, James said, there's waves in the North Shore today. He said, go to sunset, it'll be pumping. So I was like, oh, no. Oh, sunset? I've only got a 6'6" pintail. It's like... So he said, oh, if anyone gives you any grief, tell them Bob from Kaisers has sent you, right? So I...
Oh, hang on. Bob from Kaisers. What, do you know his surname?
Might be Bobby Rothman, yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
I think it is. But anyway, so we drive up to the North Shore. So I park up at sunset. There's no one there because it's the middle of the summer. It's like 6 foot solid, maybe a bit bigger. Wispy, glassy, clean. And there's about 4, 5, 6 people in. I surfed all day, and
with Bob Rothman's permission.
Yes. No one said anything to me apart from Johnny Boy Gomes gave me a nod. He was in, and Randy Rarick, and then right at the end of the day, it was like school was out, and a load of kids paddled out, and I'm adamant it was Mason Ho, Coco Ho, because there was a little girl in a Volcom sticker on her board, in a bikini, and like the inside bowl at sunset was like 6 foot solid. Scary as hell, and they were taking off and backdooring it and being spat out like it was straight out of school. And there was this little group of kids, and they were all like, you know, the right age, and not that ripping in there with all the, you know, and they were really cool. It was like I had a completely different Hawaiian experience, I think, probably to any surfer on the planet.
Yeah.
It's like,
unless you actually live in Hawaii.
They were all so friendly, and like I said, I had so many waves every day. Apart from the first few days I was there, and it was just pumping. But you know, I'd say to anyone, if you go to Hawaii, everyone goes on about going in the winter and seeing it crazy and crowded and the big waves, but summer's incredible. Like the South Shore is amazing. You get waves in the North Shore, and you haven't got the people.
And mangoes are in season probably as well.
I don't know. Yeah. I was in Subway.
They're wet season.
Oh, so James, are you officially retired now? Or you claim to be retired, but is it official?
I think so, yeah.
So what happens if somebody from LBR rings you up now and to go into the Wilkinson Sword?
No, I surfed my last heat. I told Greg. I beat him as well. The only thing I'd say, I hate the word retirement, but I just can't be bothered really to give up a weekend to go and, you know, I miss the banter and like everyone hanging out. That's the best thing about contests, apart from winning.
Yeah.
Just events like that. I went down to an Oakley contest in Newquay a couple of years ago. There were 3 years. Captain of Cornwall contest, invite only, best contest I've ever been put on. We were fed, watered, goodie bags, completely like still competitive, but you know, you had Luke Dillon was there, and they had a few other generations, Lee Bartlett, Russell and everyone, and just the get together, Nathan was there. The get together of that was just fantastic, and I think if more events like that were done, I'd probably enter, or if I could get invited to them, that would be great. I'd love to do a World Masters event. It's one thing I've never done, or a specific European Masters contest. I think I'd be in with a good shout of doing well. But I'd love to do a World Masters event and have a go at some of my like heroes, you know, especially now they're all overweight and a bit slower.
I'm not saying anything. So where's the sort of go-to spot at the moment for you? I guess it's Langland, is it? Yeah,
Dad and I it's between here and Langland, because if the waves aren't good here or the swell's too big, you know, Langland's always good. There's not many places like Langland. In fact, there's probably very few spots in the world. You know, the whole beach is like a mile in width. You've got 7 different waves there, from left slab to, you know, Crab Island. So you've got the sandbar in the middle, you've got middle of the bay, you've got the point, you've got the reef, the shore break, the trough between the reef, you've got, you know, the lefts off the reef, you've got middle of the bay, you've got gas chambers at high tide under the cliffs. There's just so much variety there. And I think that's why it's always been a bit of a competitive, you know, like you've got your little spots like the Point in Porthcawl where everyone goes, but it's one wave, whereas in Langland, you know, you've got the young kids on the inside looking over to middle of the bay where the waves are pumping, and then looking out to the sandbar. So you want to go over where they are. You want to be good enough to surf with those boys, you know. It's not even, because and you pull up and you're all looking at it. It's quite a unique place.
If you could have one spot which you were in Langland where you were allowed to surf, that the only spot forever, what would it be?
Sand Reef.
Sand Reef every time.
Sand Reef.
Yeah.
It's the only wave, big statement come in, it's the only wave probably apart from like the northeast that really, you know, you've got to be on your game and pushes your level, and no matter how good you think you are and on your game, it changes. It's really heavy, it comes out of deep water, it's shallow. It's Dad and I surfed it for years. There's, you know, you'll go to Langland, you know, like Langland's always been a bit of a breeding ground for pretty good talent in Welsh surfing. You go to Langland on a day where it's 6 foot and offshore, you paddle out Sand Reef, you're out there with you and 2 or 3 other boys. That's it. There'll be 60 people on the lefts. There'll be 30 out crab. They're all like, oh, you know, it's, you know, Lloyd Cole rips out there. You know, he's like, Lloyd's out there, Guts is out there, my dad will be out there. You know, we miss like Swinno and those boys who've all gone to live around the world, but Carwyn used to surf it a lot. Derek Hine came out there with Dad, oh God, a good few years ago, and it was like 8 foot, really ugly, and Derek pulled out a 4'3" square-tailed single fin board, paddled out, turned on a monster slab, air dropped out of it, bottom turned, did a big off the top. He was like, oh, this is pretty good. So anyone that of Derek's elk that will say, you know, it's a proper wave. And we don't get many proper waves in Britain.
And we just going back, you're talking about the young guns a little way back there. A lot of the Instagram generation coming through now. We see like your Logan Nichols, Kieran Hughes, Patrick Landon Dark. You know, like those guys are all ripping. What's your sort of take on where the modern little grommets are? Well, those guys aren't even grommets now, but they're grown up adults. The standard, there's always going to be like a little clutch of top juniors, always, you know. It is a little bit swings and roundabouts, but one year there won't be many, and the next year a couple appear. You know, those boys, to be fair, Logan and Patrick, I think if you could morph the two of them, we'd have the best ever Welsh surfer competitor that you've got. Because, they're machines, aren't they?
Yeah, Patrick's incredible. You know, his air game is fantastic. You know, Logan's rail surfing is fantastic. Plus, he's a good-looking bastard as well, isn't he?
He is, yeah. And he's good-looking on rail as well. Certainly is.
So he's all of them. There's less opportunity now, I think, that, you know, than when we were kids.
Yeah.
You know, those big companies were looking for people to sponsor. Now they're like, we don't want to go anywhere near anything. I think there's a lot of danger with modern day kids of the coaching of their natural ability being coached out to them. A lot of them surf very similar. You know, because
they're doing it to a formula that they've been told to do.
Yeah, there's a criteria now, and they go, right, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do that, and they're
being taught to the exam.
They're all being filmed all the time and watching themselves back.
Yeah,
I don't agree with that. I think that they need to be let loose a little bit. Maybe that's why, like for myself, that's what my dad did, kind of thing, by not being so, you know.
It's like in the classroom they're practicing for the test, basically. Yeah.
Totally, and you can see it. You know, they're all surfing the same, and I think that the modern day side of that coaching thing, even though I run the surf school and I'm slightly anti it, you know, like the cream will always rise to the top. anyway, and they need to be left to rise to the top, rather than being told that, oh, you're going to be great, or, you know, you're amazing. And social media is not good for that in that sense, because they stick a photo up and they, oh, I got 400 likes, brilliant. Well, hang on a minute, you can't paddle out when it's 6 foot, you know? It's like, they need to be brought back to basics.
So they need to be told logos in, logos out.
Logos in, logos out. Everyone, you know, bottom turns, it's like, it frustrates me. You see them take off and they whiz down the line. You know, yeah, they can surf, and yes, they're red hot, and I'm not knocking anything at all about, you know, what's done, but I think the best thing that all the kids from nowadays and moving forward is just go and travel. We all travelled when we were kids. They only travel now to contests. We never travelled for contests. You know, we'd go and experience. We'd go to France for the summer. Oh my God, he's just surfing Mundaka like 10 foot.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't happen now. They surf here, they train here, they go to the Canaries, France, Spain, Australia, wherever, for a contest. They're there for the week, they leave. You know, it's like that. They need to, it's the wrong way round. You know, because the standard is so high in competitive surfing that as a British nation, unless you are travelling, and we've all said it, we've all been told, you can't be a top surfer in Britain unless you travel. And they don't mean travelling for contests, they mean travelling and surfing an abundance of waves.
Very wise words, James. Very wise words. Well, we hope those kids are listening, James, because there's still a lot to be learned from you. As Welsh surfing continues to move forward, can I say, James, on behalf of both myself and Crest Podcast, that it's been great chatting to you today. An absolute fantastic experience for me, and I'm sure for all the Crest Podcast listeners as well.
I'll echo all that Rhino has said, James. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll hope to see you again in a future episode. I'm sure we can make a good enough excuse to producer Dodd, can't we, to get him on again at some point. We'll find a way. Debate him.
Beers, boys. That's what we need to bring next time.
Argue with Patrick and Logan, maybe. We've seen Logan doing a bit of arguing. He's just been dusted up by Elliot Dudley, so... yeah.
And can we also say a big thank you to the listeners or viewers, since it is for the first time, possibly to be both. Now, if you've had any thoughts on this episode or others, then do please get in touch. Our email address is castcrest@gmail.com. And as you heard at the very start, we are also now excited to announce that we have become available via Google Podcasts, as well as our usual places on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and YouTube.
We, that is Rhino and I, will be appearing on video one more time before Crest takes the winter off, albeit to return for a second season in 2021. And that is to interview somebody else who might not actually be that far away from where we are sitting right now. Can anyone guess who that might be? That's coming out at the start of October, a special date in Welsh surfing history for reasons which shall be revealed closer to the time. Clues, all will make sense, we hope. In the meantime, looking ahead to next Monday, well, you heard an earlier mention that Rhino has also joined me for a chat with Angus Ruddle, and can I say, you are in for an absolute treat. As most people know him, Gus, as most people know him, is a vascular surgeon who, besides charging heavy waves wherever and whenever he can find them, also takes on various harebrained and extreme forms of travel in the plentiful spare time which that high-stakes job affords. The man has climbed Everest and told a vivid tale of that feat, among others, to us for the benefit of Crest's listeners. It's a truly special recording indeed, and we can't wait to share it with you. Between now and then, keep enjoying the start of autumn, and here's hoping for some more waves. Thanks again. Diolch am gwrando, neu edrych hefyd. Thanks for watching too, because you might well be watching now. A gwelwch chi'r tro nesa.
Thank you very much. Good
Cheers,
night.
boys. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Crest Podcast.
1, 2,